Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for taking some of your time during this time for being with us today. We are delighted to welcome you to this Google My Business Basics webinar. My name is Patricia. You probably know me from all the emails I've been sending you lately to participate in this webinar. And due to some last minute changes, Rohit couldn't be here with us today, so I'll be taking his place. And today I'm alongside with Swami, which is a local CEO consultant at Partoo. And we are really glad that you joined us today. And again, thank you for taking some of your time to be with us today. So we will cover 4 topics in order to build a strong online presence of your brand. So firstly, we will give you a quick overview on Google My Business. Second, we will talk about how to book, create, and validate your brand's listings. Third, our recommendations on how to optimize your local SEO and therefore increase your web-to-store in conversion rate. And finally, we will give you a few tips to follow, especially considering the recent times. So please do not hesitate to ask your questions in the chat box. We have saved some time at the end of the webinar to discuss and answer them. And we will also be adding polls throughout the webinar to make it as engaging as possible. So you will be able to find all the polls and other options on the top right side of your screen. So let's deep into the subject. So we are gonna start presenting Google My Business. So what is Google My Business? To start and ensure that everyone is on the same page, we have to talk about this. So Google My Business is a free tool from Google that helps businesses owners manage their online presence across the web. Creating a Google My Business listing is the first step to local search success, and for a good reason. Google My Business offers the greatest impacts for brands seeking local exposure. For you to know, 96% of local searches in India are estimated to be done on Google. A feature like Google Local Search emphasizes the need for Google My Business listing for both a new and established businesses. In this case, it gives you a list of business nearby and a lot of information needed to find a specific business information. Like, could it be your business address, business hours, phone numbers, or your own reviews. But moving forward, we have to talk about what makes you appear on the top search results. So in this case, we're going to talk about 3 referencing criteria used by Google in its algorithm, and we are going to explain point by point. So the first one is distance, as you can see. So the distance, what we explain about this is the distance between the establishment or the store and the location of the internet user. So for example, if I want right now to eat a pizza and I search on Google pizza near me, all the restaurants near me with Italian food available will show up on the search results. Secondly, we have the relevance. What is the relevance? It's the consistency between the user's request and information available online. So for example, if I'm looking for a pizzeria open near me, what Google will look for is first, it will search for a pizzeria, then we'll look if it's open, and then finally, it will search a pizzeria that is nearby me. And finally, we have prominence. So in this case, we have to think, is all the information about your stores available on your website or all high domain authority platforms, or are they correct and up to date, or is this information reliable and consistent? So this is how Google works. It works like a human brain. So for example, just to clarify a little bit better, if I ask a random person, is Walmart open on Sunday? And they tell me that yes, it's open. But then I ask a second person, and this second person, he tells me no. I will consider this information as not reliable because I don't know whether it's open or it's closed. So I will not take into consideration this information. So Google, in this case, works exactly the same way. So it will compare your store information on all high domain authority platforms, and then accordingly to that, ranks them. So, as you have understood, all this work of referencing is essential. To appear, the request of the internet users. Now, the upcoming question should be, how do people search you? So, in this case, we are talking about the impact of these searches. So, in this case, Google differentiates user searches between two types of search. So, first we have direct search or branded search, which is when you are looking for a specific brand. For example, taking again the example of the pizzeria, if I'm looking for a Domino's pizza in Mumbai, that talks about a type of brand and search. Google will show me only the Domino's pizza that are nearby me. The second type of search is indirect search or discovery search. And it's exactly when you search, for example, by a category or activity. So in this case, I just want a pizza, so I will tap pizzeria nearby me in Mumbai. So in this case, Google will show all the brands, stores nearby me around this location, having the Italian food or Italian restaurant as one of the main categories. Also, for you to know, which is super important, is that nowadays these discovery searches or indirect searches mean an 80% of the whole Google searches done on the internet. So it's huge. And that's why there's a huge responsibility to regularly update your business information on all high domain platforms. And finally, let's move forward to the statistics. So the numbers, which is something that always is super interesting. So in this case, Google provides you with many indicators to follow the Web2Store performance. If we have to define priorities, we recommend you to follow the progressions. First, the number of times your Google listings are displayed on direct or indirect sales. And secondly, the interactions with users. That means, for example, clicks to the website, phone calls, and itinerary requests. So here in this slide, there are some examples of companies that are clients of us, like Nespresso or Carrefour, that track their KPIs between, in this case, 2018 and 2019. And we've seen that the customer's interaction increased up to 64%. So that's exponential because we are talking about a progress on hundreds of thousands of interactions. Now, in this case that I've presented the value of Google My Business, we will see that what are the main steps to follow to create and validate, as I said it previously, the records of a network of brands. So in this case, there are 6 main steps to involve in this process, as you've seen in the screen, and I will be point by point explaining them. The first one, it's an audit of your visibility. So you need to conduct an audit of your listings. Just for your information, 80% of internet users consult Google listings before deciding to visit any store. So a non-reference point of sale is a considerable loss of turnover. It is therefore essential that you enthusiastically update your business-related information. And to start from the bottom, you can answer a few questions, as you can see in the screen. First, do you manage your listings? Secondly, do they exist? And if they exist in this case, do they have an owner or are they up to date? So once you are able to answer all these questions, we can move on to the step 2, which is data directory. So in this case, it's essential to create a data directory that will be your source of truth. So this directory can be an Excel file, your database, or your website. So you simply need to have a database with complete, correct, and regularly updated information. In this case, we have listed the basic information to be filled in for Google My Business. So in this case, the basics are name of the establishment, address, website, opening hours, phone, main category, and one or two photos. Now, the third step would be to import your establishments or upload your information. So from your Google My Business account, you can download the Excel file for uploading information. This template will allow you to create and indicate all the information of your stores. And something that is important for you to know is that this file must contain at least 10 businesses if you want to do a group validation. And once the upload is finished, you will see that your records are not yet validated. And for this reason, you must create a group of businesses, of establishments. So this group of establishments account has three types of benefits. The first one is the centralization of information. So you have a single view of all your stores. Second, you have a simplified validation of your records. Then the third one and final one is a shared management with users. So to create your group of establishments, in this case, this is done directly on the Manage Location section. Google also will ask you to fill out a form where you have to fill in some basic information, such as the name of the business and your contact information. And the creating process can take up 3 months, if I'm not wrong, despite what Google says. And once the account in this case is created, all your records will be validated. So with this procedure, you have validated the records of your stores that did not have an owner and created those that did not exist until then. So now let's look up to a special case, a particular case. In this case, we're talking about what happens if the listing has already an owner. So how to recover a file that already has an owner. So in this case, when we find this type of situation, well, for example, it's possible that your store manager created a listing without you knowing it. So this is super interesting for you to know. So in this case, either it is a person that you know, in which case this person can transfer you the property directly, or otherwise, from your Google My Business account, you will have to make a request for your ownership, then fill out a form and wait 7 days for the owner to respond. In this case, this person can accept, refuse, or just do not respond. So we'll see its point. What happens if this person accepts? So just perfect, you will be able to recover this listing and you get back this ownership. Then if this person does not respond, you can ask for an access code that will be sent by mail to the store. And finally, if they refuse, it gets more complicated. You will have to start again the process. So till now, we have covered the main points from the creation to the validation of the listings. Now, moving forward, I will request Swami to take over from here. Swami?
Thank you, Petri. Once again, really nice to meet everyone. I see some familiar faces in the list of people here. And yeah, thank you for being here. So now that we've covered how to create and validate your listing, I would like to speak a bit more about how exactly can these listings be optimized. And optimization can mean using features such as categories, for example. What exactly are categories? Google allows every business to use one main category that defines the nature of your business. For example, in the case on the slide here, Castorama is your do it on your own store, right? Why are categories important? Because as we saw earlier in the webinar, this is a main way for you to increase your chances of being found on indirect searches. Even though most businesses set up one main category, Google allows you to add up to 9 additional categories. And these are subcategories that define a certain aspect of your business. Again, as we see on the slide right here, even though Castorama primarily is a DIY store, it also appears on searches such as gardening store. And for example, if someone searched for a hardware store, a better example about categories would be if you were a fashion retailer, your main category might be clothing store. But of course, your clients can also find shoes, can also find perhaps a clothing line specific for women, specific for children. These things can be directly included as part of your listing, and they are a massive, massive boost to your hyperlocal SEO and chances of being found on discovery searches. Moving forward, a second most important feature on Google My Business that helps you with local SEO is attributes. What are attributes? Simply put, these are tags that define your points of sale, such as wheelchair accessibility, value for money, Wi-Fi availability, etc. There are two main kinds of attributes. The first one is the subjective attributes that characterize the atmosphere, and these are things that cannot be managed by the business owner itself. These are things that are found by questionnaires sent by Google. This could be essentially things that your customers um, perceive about your business. The second kind of attributes are the objective attributes. These are things that you can directly determine through your Google My Business back office. These could be things such as means of payment, accessibility options, etc. When we talk about attributes, why exactly are these so important and why are they relevant? For example, if I were to search for a restaurant which also has wheelchair accessibility, if I type on Google search or Google voice search, open restaurant near me with wheelchair accessibility, unless and until you have specified this in your listing, this will not show up. On the contrary, let's say that in your listing, you've mentioned that delivery is an option and you're the only business that has mentioned it. If I said fashion store near me with delivery, you will be the only business that shows up. This is why attributes are very, very crucial for you to have a competitive advantage over your competitors. Moving on, another feature that can help you to optimize your listing are photos on GMB. Something that I notice on a daily basis when I go through listings of different brands and different industries, photos often are something that are overlooked by the brands, and there is two reasons why these are very important. Number one is the referencing aspect itself. There is a direct correlation between the number of photos on a listing and the number of searches it shows up on. Based on a recent study carried out on over 45,000 businesses, we found out that businesses that have more than 100 photos on an average appear in about 7 times more discovery searches. What's even more interesting is that these businesses with more than 100 photos actually generated over 27 times direction requests on an average. So number one is the referencing aspect. And as you can see, it's very important from a business to take care of the number of photos you have. But it's not only that. What else can you do with photos? Number one, you can showcase, for example, the entrance to your store. I noticed again, on a constant basis, many customers have difficulties finding the entrance to a store, perhaps in a crowded complex or a crowded area. There's one way you can do that. And again, they are a great opportunity for you to showcase a certain aspect of your store. At the end of the day, one of the main drawing features for people to go to your store is the experience itself. So again, it's a great way for you to showcase what they are potentially going to find in your store. Moving on. Finally, what I'd like to discuss with respect to optimization is exceptional hours. Exceptional hours are essentially any hours that happen outside of your regular business hours. There are two cases in which this can be interesting. Number one, the days in which your usual schedule has been modified due to a certain exceptional situation, such as the case at the moment in India across different regions. During lockdown, a great way for you to notify your customers that due to government restrictions, these are the hours you're functional. This can be specified directly in your listing. And I'm going to cover this in the next aspect, uh, next part of the webinar, sorry. The second type of it is during holidays. For example, you may have noticed that when there is a national holiday or a regional holiday, by default, what Google does is on the listing, it defines in an orange font that the hours might be different during holidays. If you look at the presentation right there, it says Christmas Eve might affect these hours. Now, from a business standpoint, this is relevant for you on two fronts. Number one, when Google does it on its own, it means that as a business, you haven't updated it from your end. By default, Google penalizes you by reducing your local SEO ranking because it sees that you didn't take care of it. From a customer point of view, if I were to search for, let's say, Starbucks as an example, and I see that Christmas Eve might affect these hours, I may not know if these hours are correct. So one or two things is going to happen. Either I will go to the Starbucks and I will find out for myself that it was closed, which would mean that I will find the nearest cafeteria selling cafe at the day, or I will simply not go there at all because I'm not sure if it's open or not. So it's very important as a business for you to take care of it. And when you do change it on your own, it shows up in green, as in the first example on the screen. And Google by default rewards you because it sees that you're active and you take care of the information that you present on your listing. So it's very, very important. Moving on. Now that we've seen how to optimize, a great way for you to maximize your chances of being chosen are your customer reviews. As a brand, there's three main reasons why you should consider your reviews. Number one would be to strengthen your customer relationship. Simply put, every single time you respond to a review, this particular customer gets a notification saying that you've responded to them. Be it positive or negative, by default, when a customer sees that you take the time to respond to them, it increases your chances and it strengthens your relationship. Number two would be your brand e-reputation. 97% of internet users who read reviews also read the response of the business to these reviews. Simply by responding to either a positive or a negative review, it is a great chance for you to present your brand image and to increase one more touch point with your potential customer. This is one of the reasons why we strongly recommend not to use autoresponders, purely because customers also notice that every 5-star review or every 2-star review has the same response from you, and they understand that quite likely you did not consider this review at all. And so we strongly emphasize to try to include as many personal touch points and personal modifications to reviews as possible. And finally, of course, Google really rewards businesses that respond to reviews. And actually, according to the latest Moz report, your Google reviews are the second most important factor in terms of your local SEO ranking. So again, just by answering your reviews and ensuring that you're considering your reviews really closely, you will also increase your chances of being found on the internet. Finally, to wrap up the webinar today, I'd like to quickly discuss some points that you can take, some measures you can take as a business, specifically during COVID times. So, in the case that is in most regions in India, if your business is closed, there is a reason why you need to really take into consideration how you're going to reflect this information on Google My Business. Primarily, if your stores are closed and you haven't changed your opening hours, Google automatically lists them as temporarily closed. As you can see in the example there with Nawad Sahib, you can see that it's listed as temporarily closed. There is a reason why we again strongly recommend you shouldn't do it this way. Number one, when your business is temporarily closed, automatically Google suspends all the attributes. These could be very, very important attributes, such as delivery being available, no contact delivery, excuse me, and things such as links to your e-commerce portal, things such as links to your Google Merchant Center. These are attributes that are very relevant for you, especially during lockdown, to drive traffic to your e-commerce portal, to let your customers know that delivery is an option. If you don't close your business the right way, Google by default does it for you, and it suspends all these things. And on a global scale, that can have a massive impact on your business overall. So, what is the right way to do it? Something we covered already in the webinar: exceptional hours. So your normal hours will be the same. So your stores will be listed as open, but then if you close them using exceptional hours, as a client, when I see it, I will see that, okay, between 14th of May until the 27th of May, this is the exceptional hours, and this is due to lockdown in Karnataka or Maharashtra, etc. So that's one way to do it. Another things that you can do to communicate to your customer during this time is using attributes such as health and safety attributes. Health and safety attributes is an attribute recently released by Google during COVID-19. And primarily, it tells your customers what are the health and safety measures as a brand that you're taking forward. These could be things such as staff wearing masks, masks being mandatory, any other measures that you're doing. Essentially, if I was a potential customer and I want to go to your store, and I'm concerned as a brand, what are the measures that you're taking? If I see on your listing this attribute listed, by default, it tells me as a brand, you take the safety and concern of your clients very seriously, and it reassures me to go to the store. Another thing that you can use during this time is if you have a click and collect option in your stores. This is again very important. In fact, with one of our clients, Intersport in France, when click and collect attribute was released by Google, they were one of the first people that in turn reflected it on all their stores. And in turn, they had a whopping 100,000 increase in direction requests, primarily due to just enabling click and collect on their stores and their competitors not doing that. Finally, to make good on time, we have 2 minutes before I want to go to the questions and answers from your end. I would like to discuss Google posts, specifically COVID posts. What are Google posts? It's essentially a post that can be done on as part of your GMB listing that involves a picture and a short title and write-up. Now, this could be used for various reasons, be it store openings, be it a message during COVID, be it offers, promotions, etc. But primarily, I'd like to talk about COVID-19 posts. These are posts specifically launched during COVID by Google. This really show up as on as high on your listing as possible, so it's very visible. And as a brand, you can tell your customers, for example, during COVID times, delivery is an option, we are with you, or any message of hope. This could be conveyed directly as part of your listing. Finally, before we move on to question and answers, I'd like to quickly again thank everyone for being here today and for spending time with us. And I hope that you learned something new, and it was really informative and interesting, as it was for me and for Patricia to do it and organize it for you. I'd like to very quickly give a word about Partoo itself. I see some familiar faces, so maybe you've heard this pitch from me before, but for those who are new, Partoo helps brands with a lot of retail physical points of sale to manage their online presence, ultimately to increase their digital customer acquisition and customer retention rates. We also provide solutions for reviews that helps you on two fronts. Number one, to manage all your reviews across Google My Business, across Facebook Local and TripAdvisor in one central dashboard. We provide you with templates, with filters, with semantic analysis, etc. And finally, we also provide a solution for you to directly request reviews to customers that come to physical stores by sending an SMS to their phones, and in 2 clicks, they can drop you a posted review. For the moment, that's it from me, and I'm looking forward to answer all your questions. Again, thank you very much for spending time with us today. And of course, I would love to have a more detailed discussion with you. Please do drop me a note, and if you want to reach out to me, that's my WhatsApp. Thank you very much. And now we're going to move on